if they were influencing us without us even knowing it? What might happen if we started deliberately using our influence on them equally unbeknownst to them? What if we started using our imagination consciously in our own favor? This leads us to the question, how are we influenced? Or to put it another way, how are we programmed? After careful contemplation, my answer is through something I call the Cooperative Imagination Network. You've heard me talk about this if you've watched a few of my more recent videos. Let's use the earth as a starting point to understand this concept better. The fact that we all collectively refer to this place we live on as the earth is a prime example of a cooperative imagination network in action. It's as if we've all signed an unwritten agreement that this location we exist on will be called Earth. How we arrived here is lost in the annals of time, not recorded, or maybe we've just misplaced that particular piece of data. Regardless, the truth of the matter is this place likely didn't always bear the name Earth. Perhaps we initially named it Alien Land or something equally imaginative. But now we've universally settled on Earth for this mostly spherical place we call home. As we navigate through Earth, we discover different terrains and bodies of water. These are the pockets of lands where we as human beings chose to dwell. More often than not, these lands were already inhabited. The inhabitants may resemble us to varying degrees in appearance and skin color, but they more than likely were bipedal, meaning they had 2 legs, probably 2 arms, just like us. Over time, someone conceives the idea that we need not live beneath or amongst the trees or in caves. We can construct structures on this land we now occupy. Then another group comes along with a more advanced concept. We could segment this land into plots, sell them, and thus create an economy for our community. This is the Cooperative Imagination Network at work. Without truly understanding who owns the earth, we've been convinced by someone that they do and that they have the authority to sell it to us. And we believe it because participating in this cooperative imagination network is beneficial to us. Living in a house is more comfortable than living in trees. Despite maybe having initial uncertainties and fears when we first transitioned from living in trees and caves into living in houses. But as generations pass, we buy more into the idea of land ownership, no longer questioning it. We believe that someone else has a greater right to the land than we do, and we need to participate in this imaginative network to claim ownership. However, we often forget that this system is a creation of our collective imagination. It's not real in a tangible sense. And within that forgetfulness, we also forget our power to change things. This isn't about slavery, but it's worth mentioning that when people from Europe, or what we call Europe, came to what we call Americas, they brought a new way of living, an imaginative, cooperative network that was used against what we call the Native Americans or the Niji people or the people of color that were already here in the land. But that's history now, and we need to look at it objectively to understand how we got here instead of being overwhelmed by the emotions of what happened in the past. The point here is to open our minds to the ideas that many of the things we see as absolutes in our lives are actually part of these imaginative cooperative networks. For instance, when I was growing up, I was told to put away childish things, to stop living in an imaginative world. Yet now, as an adult, I see that we're all living in a dream world of our own creation, or we're living in a dream world of another person's creation. Whether it's the internet, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, we are all living in a dream world. We are living in other people's imagination. Let's take marriage, for example. It's a cooperative imagination network that has become so ingrained in our society that many people can't imagine a loving, healthy relationship without the concept of marriage overlaying it. But the idea of marriage has become more important than the actual relationship between the parties. We've layered this additional imaginative construct onto the basic idea of two people deciding, two or more people, depending upon what you go with, deciding to share their lives together. So the crux of my talk is this. We are all participants in a myriad of cooperative imagination networks that have shaped our societal norms, economic systems, and personal beliefs. Whether it's the concept of land ownership or the institution of marriage, these imaginative networks have a profound influence on our lives and are so deeply entrenched that we often fail to recognize them as mere constructs of our collective imaginations. Let's take a step back and reevaluate. By recognizing these networks for what they truly are, creations of our collective imaginations, we can start to reclaim the power to reshape and redefine them. Just as our ancestors moved from living in trees, caves, to buildings and houses, we too can imagine and create new paradigms that better serve our evolving needs and values. It's not about losing sight of the fact that our lives are not dictated by fixed, immutable absolutes, but rather by flexible constructs that can be changed. I want to repeat that. It's not about not losing sight of the fact that our lives are not dictated by fixed, immutable absolutes, but rather by flexible constructs that can be changed. We must remember that these constructs, these imaginative networks, are tools to be used, not masters to be obeyed. They can be beneficial, but should not be allowed to overshadow our essential human relationships and interactions. The goal isn't to reject these networks outright or to live off the grid. Rather, it's to recognize and understand them, to critically engage with them instead of passively accepting them. By doing so, we can navigate these networks more consciously and effectively, and perhaps even create new ones that better reflect our evolving understanding of the world and our place within it. Just like the pioneers who first dared to call a patch of the earth their own, or the visionaries who imagined the internet into existence, we too can be architects of change. Let's not forget that the world we live in is shaped not by unchangeable facts, but by our collective imagination. And as we all know, imagination is the first step toward creating a new reality. So let's dare to imagine. Let's dare to change. Let's dare to live in a dream world where we all are winning and living in our true potential. This is Sean Speaks, and remember, brain health is mental